Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm going to talk about three very important things. So this video will be divided into three parts. In the first part, I'm going to talk about a few important do's and don'ts for the next 50 odd days of your preparation. In the second part, I'm going to talk about what I did during the last 15 days of my preparation and what I recommend you guys do. And lastly, in the third part or the last part of this video, I'm going to talk about a few test taking tips that help me score better. So coming to the first part, the important do's and more importantly, the don'ts for the next 50 days. So this is not going to be a strategy for the next 50 days. I've already made a video on a strategy for the last 45 days, which the link of which I'll add to the description. So if you want a strategy per se for the next 45 or 50 days, you can check out that video. But this is going to stress on important don'ts, rather things that you shouldn't definitely be doing for the next 50 days. So firstly, don't change your book, or more importantly, don't change the resource you have been following. So if you have been following a certain resource, for example, Marrow, continue following that resource. Trust the resource you've been following, because changing resource at this point is not going to help anyone. So trust the resource, keep going forward with your strategy, with your plan, whatever you've been going through, and let's see how it works out. But don't change right now, because it'll just end up in unnecessary confusion. So as all of you know, I used Marrow during the last phase of my preparation, and I completely trusted Marrow. I didn't look at any other book, look into any other source. I trusted the one resource that I had, and it paid off well. So trust the resource you have. Every resource out there has enough to ensure that you get a seat or get a good rank. So trust the resource. Don't jump between resources. Don't solve QBank from Bhatia today, QBank from Marrow tomorrow, QBank from Unacademy day after. Don't do that. Trust one resource, stick to one resource, and ensure that you finish that resource completely. Secondly, I've told this many a times, this is the last phase of your preparation, so don't watch videos. Videos take a lot of time, and the yield from a video is not really that great. If you solve 1 hour of MCQs, the yield that you get is much more than if you watch a 1 hour video on a certain topic. For example, if you watch a video on shock, it goes for about an hour. Whereas if you spend the same time solving MCQs, you'll finish 3-4 chapters or 3-4 important topics. So don't watch long elaborate videos right now. There is no time for that. So avoid watching videos, especially the long lecture videos. Next, very important point, don't spend more than 5 days on any one subject. It's important that you go through all subjects and you brush through everything. So don't delve into a subject or don't go too deep into a subject. Spend a maximum of 5 days. This is a revision phase, so a maximum of 5 days should be spent on a subject. Do not spend more than 5 days on any subject. If you're not finishing the subject in 5 days, it doesn't matter. Jump to the next subject, because you want to brush through everything. Next, don't make elaborate notes right now. So if you're planning to write NEET 2021, definitely don't write elaborate or don't make elaborate notes right now. If you're planning for 22, 23, well and good, sit and make notes, create your resource. But if you're going for 2021, which is just maybe a month and a half away, don't sit and make elaborate notes. It's going to be a colossal waste of time. Spend all that time solving MCQs rather, and the yield will be far more, or the yield will be much better. Now coming to a few do's, the most important do is to stick to what you've been doing so far. Don't change plan right now. It's just going to lead to a lot of unnecessary confusion and you won't be really moving ahead. So whatever you've been doing so far, go ahead with that, trust that, and be confident, and I'm sure it'll help you. Secondly, something that I would recommend, right now all of us will be in our revision phase, so we'll be revising subjects. So when you plan your revision, plan such that the volatile subjects such as biochem, ophthal, pharmac, whatever you find volatile, comes towards the end of your preparation. So imagine you're starting on July 1st and you're preparing till August 31st. Make sure that you finish the less volatile subjects like surgery, obs, and medicine in the early part of your preparation, and keep the more volatile subjects like dermat, pharmac, biochem, and ophthal towards the end of your preparation, because subjects like biochem have a retention of just 1 to 2 weeks in your mind. So keep that closer to the exam date. So the revision of the more volatile subjects and the shorter subjects, let it be closer to the exam dates, and finish the less volatile subjects right now. So these were a few important do's and don'ts for the next 50 days of your preparation. Now we'll move on to the second part of the video, in which I'll talk about the last 15 days, or a strategy or a plan for the last 15 days. So here, this is the most crucial part of your preparation, and as soon as you enter this phase, you're putting your notes and textbooks aside, and you're going to purely focus on solving MCQs. And even in the MCQs, you should focus more on solving the previous year MCQs. So a lot of you will have this doubt, the exam pattern is changed, the type of questions that are going to come is changed. So will solving previous year questions really help? And I feel yes, they should help and they will help, because the previous year, both NEET and AIMS questions are set by the same set of people that are going to be setting this year's papers also. So there will be certain important topics, that they keep questioning again and again. For example, vitamin B12 or GCS. So you can identify these important topics by solving the previous year questions. So as you keep solving previous year questions, you will understand that there's a pattern. And although the syllabus is maybe 100, the questions, majority of the questions come from just 20%. So if the syllabus is 100%, majority of the questions actually come from just 20%. So you will identify what is that 20% when you solve previous year questions. So even if the question is clinically oriented or a clinical based question, it will still come from these same topics of GCS and B12. So you can identify the important topics by solving the previous year questions. And then once you identify the important topics, you can learn them better. You can understand the concepts behind these topics better. And when you understand the concepts better, even if it's a clinical based questions from that topic, you will be able to answer it because the concept is the same. So spend time to solve the previous year questions. Identify the important topics, are the frequently asked topics in the previous year questions, and from those topics, learn those topics well, understand the concept behind those topics, and then even if the question coming from those topics is clinical based, you'll be able to answer it because you've understood the topic well. The topic doesn't change, only the pattern of the question changes. So I think it's really important that you do solve previous year questions. So don't miss out on solving previous year questions. Spend the last few days solving previous year questions, understanding those core topics and those frequently asked topics really well. And obviously you'll be able to answer even a clinically based question if you understand the concept behind those topics well. Next, identify the volatile topics, the things that are very, very fact based and things that you tend to forget but are frequently asked. For example, your IPC sections, CRPC sections, and rate limiting steps in biochemical reactions, important coenzymes. So all these are very volatile. You tend to forget them. So identify what they are, make a small list of all these volatile topics and keep revising them frequently. So the last 15 days should be spent on revising the important fact-based and very volatile topics. So like I said, every day, note down all the important IPCs, CRPCs you encounter while solving previous year questions, and every day revise those topics because they are something that will definitely be asked, but you tend to forget. I think every year there's been at least one IPC or CRPC section that's been asked. So, spend this time to identify those things, note down all these very important, frequently asked volatile things and revise them every day. So spend the last 15 days identifying these and revising these too. Marrow has a beautiful thing called pearls, right? And a lot of you would have bookmarked pearls. So again, when you bookmark pearls, even now you can follow this, bookmark only those pearls that are volatile or fact based, because the concept based pearls you'll anyway remember. So identify those fact based pearls and volatile pearls. For example, they have a pearl on IPC sections, they have a pearl on important coenzymes. So identify these golden pearls and bookmark these important pearls, and you can spend these last 15 days revising these pearls which are very volatile and very fact based but will be asked. So they have beautiful IPC section, a pearl on IPC sections, they have a pearl on coenzymes which basically condenses textbooks of information into one table. So identify these kind of pearls and bookmark them and use this last 15 days to revise them. I would revise around 100 to 150 pearls every morning during my last 15 days, and the pearls I identified were the ones which are like this, very fact based and condensed a lot of pages of information into one table. For example, coenzymes, you'll have to go through all the chapters to identify the coenzymes, but Marrow has one table in which all the coenzymes are beautifully given. So identify these kind of pearls and bookmark them and spend the last 15 days revising these pearls daily. So you're strengthening your fact-based knowledge also during these last 15 days. So the most important takeaway from this video is that don't miss out on solving previous year questions, NEET and AIMS, and identifying the most important topics. Lastly, I'll talk about the few test taking tips or a few tips that really helped me score better, or I believe rather, score better in NEET. And these are not my tips. These are tips that I found across many platforms and in videos by many other achievers and bigger achievers. So I applied some of these when I went to NEET, and I found them super helpful. So there are 4 simple things that I like to talk about. Firstly, attempt maximum questions. Again, this is strongly my belief. When I wrote my NEET, I attempted 300 on 300 questions, because I feel there's a 4:1 ratio. So assume that you get 4 questions wrong and 1 question right. You're still covering up for the 4 questions lost. I hope you understood that. So basically the ratio between positive and negative is very deep. So I think it's worth taking a risk, especially if you can even rule out a single option. It's worth taking a risk. So I would recommend solving all the questions. So I think this year it's for 200 questions. So I would recommend solving 200 on 200, or at least attempting 195 on 200. So take a chance, try your luck, but attempt as many questions as you can. I feel that will help more, and I feel there's a lot more to benefit by attempting than by skipping. Secondly, read all 4 options before marking the answer. So the examiners also know that sometimes we tend to just mark and go forward, especially when there's a crunch in time. So remember, many a times they put the option A or option B as something which looks like the answer, but the actual answer will be C or D, but most people don't go and read those. So ensure that you read, even if option A looks obviously to be the answer, make sure you read all 4 options before marking the answer, because sometimes the option is the actual answer is hidden in C and D, which are neglected. So even if option A or B looks like the answer, read all 4 options before marking. So always read all 4 options before marking an answer, and think about all 4 options if possible. Next, if it looks too obvious, it's very unlikely that that's the answer. So this is again a very dicey thing. Sometimes it works against you, but you should just keep in mind that if it looks too obvious, then it's probably not the answer. But again, this is not a fact. It's just something that you can keep in mind. Lastly, what happens when you rule down to 2 options? So many a times, there are 4 options. We can easily rule out 2 options, and then we are stuck with just 2 options. So what I would do when I was stuck with 2 options, again, this is something that I saw in another video which I used and it helped me. So when I'm down to 2 options, suppose A and C, I read the question once more, and then I look at option A and look at option C. So among these 2, there'll be one option that I know better. So suppose I know a little more about option A. So I think about everything I know about option A and try to fit it into the question. Try to fit it into whatever clinical scenario is given. So if I'm able to fit it in somehow, even by the weirdest of ways, then I would put A as the answer. But if I can't fit it in at all, then I would choose C as the answer. So again, if I rule down to 2 options, I focus on one option which I know better. So I identify the option that I know better, and I try to fit in the question to that option. So if I'm unable to fit it in, then I go for the other option. So I guess it sounds a little confusing, but if you think about it, you might understand what I'm trying to say. So basically, when you're ruled down to 2, think about the one you know better in detail. If you can fit it in, that's the answer. If you can't fit it in, choose the other answer. So these are few tips which are very vague, but kind of help me score better. But among these 4, definitely attempting all 4 questions, attempting maximum questions was something that really helped. So I think it's worth taking the risk because of the 4:1 ratio. If it's -1 and +1, definitely it isn't worth taking the risk, but it's +4 and -1. So it's definitely worth taking the risk. So that's it for this video. I'll try and talk about a few more test taking tips in my next video. I'll add a few more to this and we'll discuss them in a little more detail. But yeah, hope you found this useful. Keep studying and keep going forward, and yeah, believe in yourself. Bye.